No, I don't.
Oh,
No.
okay, cool. All right, me
Scam.
neither.
Okay.
All right, well, we're live here
Woohoo!
on Facebook Live, which is always annoying because I have to like go and find it and reshare it and do all those things, but we do it because we love it.
Yes.
And today, I here on the MAPCON podcast, I have a very special guest. But before I get to introduce that guest, that Emmy award-winning guest, I have to take care of some quick business. So if you're interested in podcasting, you should totally come to MAPCON. It's the Mid-Atlantic Podcast Conference. It's held in Atlantic City, New Jersey this year. And if you want to get 15% off your plus or premium ticket, you can use discount code MAPCON5. Go to midatlanticpodcast.com/register. And we have a sponsor this week. I'm blown away by this, but we have a sponsor. It's this episode of the Mid-Atlantic Podcast Conference podcast is brought to you by podcastingyou.com. Are you someone who wants to get booked on podcasts, which is great because the person we're talking to tonight is someone that you definitely want to talk to if you want to be booked on podcasts, but you don't have the time to research and pitch shows. Podcasting You is a done-for-you booking service that gets you booked on the top shows in your niche. The best part is there's no retainer fee and you approve the shows prior to pitching. Check them out at podcastingyou.com. That's YOU.com. Now, when you feel like you're ready to go and get pitched, the person you might want to hire is sitting to my left. I had to think about this because it's all here. Is sitting to my left right now, though technically I guess it's the right if you're facing. We have the honor of having a featured speaker this year, who is an Emmy award-winning journalist, and her name is Bofta Yimam. Yimam. I knew I was going to.
You got it. It's all good.
Yes, and Bofta, why don't you, without me butchering anymore, why don't you introduce yourself and some of your background?
Oh, thank you. No, thank you for having me here. Totally an honor. I'm excited for your conference and excited to be a featured speaker. So anyone who's on the fence, yeah, you got to get into the conference. So that's a quick plug because I'll be there and I'm excited to meet everyone. But a little background on me. I'm a former TV anchor, media personality, and as you mentioned, Emmy and Murrow award-winning journalist. And I am a journalist turned entrepreneur, although once a journalist, always a journalist. Turned entrepreneur. I'm a full-time speaker and coach. And what I do at the very core of what I do is I help you craft and syndicate your compelling signature story so you can thrive, you can deeply connect with your audience, and you can rock it on a stage or online with your story, because that to me is the real differentiator between us all.
I was sorry. I was still writing the share post.
Joe's over there typing. I can go on and on. Like I can talk.
No, keep going. I got one more place to share this.
Okay. So, I have a lot of coaches, consultants, people who are trying to break through and share their story on bigger stages. How do you get on stages? What are some of the systems that you have in place in order for your story to shine? And I believe that it starts with the story. It moves into what you need to have for your speaker reel, your conference bio, your speaker bio, things that really go from treating speaking like a hobby to treating it as part of your business and part of who you are and your brand. And in my opinion, online is great. It's fantastic. But in person is also another beast that sometimes gets lost in the shuffle because everyone's talking about digital and Facebook ads. So.
Well, I think there's a difference between being famous and being like internet famous. And I learned that a lot, like back in 2004, 2005, that there's a very big gap there between having a lot of people that appreciate the work that you're doing versus like having those people actually show up and like do a thing with you.
Yes. And I think that, look, the reality is when somebody's at the front of the room, and I know, Joe, you're a speaker as well. When somebody's at the front of the room, that gives instant authority. Which sometimes online, a lot of entrepreneurs, especially solo entrepreneurs, folks just starting out in podcasting, you're trying to get that authority. And so if you can get to the front of a room, you really have instant authority. And most of you are probably experts at something. You know, that's what you're coaching, that's what you're doing, you're teaching through your podcast. And why not just take that and move it on to more of a public setting, like, you know, a stage where now you have an audience full of people who want more of you after you've spoken. So I couldn't agree more, Joe. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about crafting your story and how much do you end up cutting out? Because I know I can
A
be
lot.
really long-winded, right, about my story and the things that led me to where I'm at today. Because I believe, you know, our paths are so critical to where we, you know, where we are today. Like it absolutely makes every bit of importance to how we got to where we are. So how do you go about like slicing some of that out, especially when you're working with someone and they're like, but that part was so important. You know, it meant so much to me. And you're like,
yeah. Well,
okay.
Here's the thing. That's where, you know, my background being in journalism and working around the country for different affiliates for the past decade really helps, because what you're doing as a journalist, Joe, is actually the best journalists are always thinking of what can I leave out so it doesn't muddy and murky the story and what you're trying to get across. Because you might go through a 50-minute interview, but you can only actually get on air 2 minutes. So you need to concisely say what it is to keep the person's attention and to make sure they get the meat of what you're trying to say. Now, keynotes and speaking is not 2 minutes, but I think everyone here gets the idea. You have to know what the transformational moments, as I like to call it, are in your story. And you have to dig pretty deep for that, because everyone doesn't want to hear everything all of us have gone through. So the question of what do you leave out a ton, but that's so that you can focus on the main pieces that draw people in and really connect with your audience.
You know, two short stories that I think it really hit me after like 4 years of doing this. I wanted to craft a talk where I actually intentionally left things out. Like in previous talks, I'd just try to jam like as much as I possibly could in there. You know, it's like the something I like the vacation movies, like shoving everything into the station wagon. And then when I was doing this talk in back in August, I was like, you know, I'm going to craft this so that people ask questions afterwards, because that's something I struggled with, was like a lot of times there wasn't a whole lot of questions. There might be one or two or three, but the conversation doesn't continue afterwards, and like I wouldn't get as many people standing around waiting to talk to me afterwards. They'd be like, oh, that was awesome, and so like walking out the door. Versus like people that want to sit there and talk. And that's why I was like, you know what, I'm gonna cut a lot out of this talk. I'm gonna use air and talk, like pauses so that I can fill more time and leave more impactful things with people to make them feel something deeper than just the informational, like technical spot that I'm usually known to do.
And what did you notice? I'm curious, because that's exactly the transition that I help people with. What did you notice after you made that shift for yourself?
People stood around afterwards to wait to talk to me, to ask questions for things that I didn't answer. And also I left a lot of time for questions, because I knew that like I intentionally was like, I know someone's going to ask this question, so I'm going to leave this bit of information out so that people can, because once someone asks a question, then more people have more questions and starts a conversation. And I also felt like my talk was more impactful and less like A, B, C,
Facts
D,
and figures,
you know,
like,
that kind of thing.
Facts and figures don't leave that imprint on people. They can Google that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Most of it.
So
I'm glad you were able to find that you wanted to do something that would deeply connect with your audience. And it's probably changed the game for you too, just as a speaker and as you travel and speak more often, and of course have your own podcast. So makes sense.
Yeah, and then to the second part is actually playing right behind me, cutting the first episode of my TV show down from 58 minutes down to 23 and a half minutes, like so much, like, oh no, like this is important. But the fact that matters is when you go back like section by section, you start listening, like, okay, I'm going to cut this out and I'm going to cut this out. Okay, now I'm going to go back and re-listen. Oh, well, now this part doesn't make any sense anymore because that part wasn't there to like work with it. Okay, now I just saved like a minute. Without even really trying. So it's things like that you just get to, I guess experience. It took
Yeah.
like over 4 years to figure that to
I
figure
know you
out
should have
like
hired a coach, Joe. Just saying. No, just joking.
I could have. Yeah,
I
I could have.
know.
I probably should have. If money wasn't an issue and I first got
Well,
started, then I
and that's
probably
for
would have.
most. Yeah, and you know what? And that's for most. That's why I'm glad you figured it out, because it does take some maneuvering. It takes some deeper thought. It's not just getting up there and just going off the cuff. Look, people do that, but are those the people that we end up wanting more from? Nah, unless they're a speaker pro, probably not. That's because they've repeated it and they finessed it and they've gotten it down. And if you think about Joe, and for everyone who's watching or catching the replays and so forth, if you watch, you probably have a favorite speaker on YouTube and you watch them for motivation. They're saying the same messages. They might be telling a little bit of a different story here and there, but their core messages are probably 3 or 4 things, and they're just saying them in different ways. But the core messages are there, and they're just taking you through a little bit of their journey with a story. And so, that's something that I think everyone should pay attention to, because why are you drawn to the speakers you're drawn to? Why are you drawn to the podcasters you're drawn to? It's probably because they're pretty good storytellers, I would bet.
Yeah, I think but I do like it takes a lot of effort to make it look effortless, right? It's
Oh my
not
gosh,
it's
yeah.
not easy.
No, it's not easy. And I think a lot of people, Joe, to your point, underestimate the amount of practice a professional speaker is doing who's really, truly a pro. They're plucked from a pack to do the keynote. They have to deliver. They're going over that talk, I bet, for a lot of them, and I've heard this number thrown out 60 or 80 times because they want it to be so flawless. And I know you're laughing, but I swear it's true. I swear it's true. Because when you want it to be flawless, you want it to be like you and I are talking right now, but, let's say it's a keynote and you're on a stage, you got to work this side of the room and kind of work this and deliver in a way that's kind of magnetic and get all that. And to do it flawlessly, guess what? You have to practice, and that's where most people, I find most people don't want to do it. They want to look good on a stage, but they don't want to do the work. And that's what separates good from great.
I think the practice is definitely was the hardest part. I mean, you can't really see it, but there's turntables behind me off to my side here, and one of the most boring parts of DJing was practicing in my bedroom because there's no one giving me energy back. When you're on stage and you're playing for even just like 5 people, you're getting some level of energy. You're getting a feedback. You're getting whether or not they're feeling it or they're not feeling it, and like, okay, we should go in this direction. And when it comes to talk, it's like I already figured out what, like, this is what it is, and there's no, like, if they're not feeling it, I might be in trouble.
And I have a quick tip for anyone who's actually in that position and they're thinking, oh, how do I get feedback? One, record yourself, because the recording doesn't lie. You know what I'm saying? Like, record yourself and actually act it out and gesture and move like you would as if you were doing this live on a stage. The second thing is get a trusted friend, keyword trusted friend, to sit there in your house with you and actually, review it, or send it to a coach or mentor, whoever you have in your corner. But I do recommend some type of eye on it, just a second eye on it, especially if it's something near and dear to your heart. You're not sure if you're going to get emotional sometimes. People are speaking for the first time. I mean, nerves can create tears. You know what I mean? Like, our bodies react. Fear is a fear. And so our amygdala doesn't always know really the difference. They can't differentiate the fear of public speaking and the fear of the lion in the jungle who is going to eat us alive back in the day. Truly. So the fear is real. It's real. It's real. I'm telling you, your amygdala really can't differentiate. So you have to make sure you practice it enough that you're not scared. If that's a thing for you out there, you're scared and you have a lot of fear around public speaking. That's not you, Joe, but there might be people in this audience where it is a fear. You laughing at the lion in the jungle, but it's true.
It is. It's still, it's still, I still get nervous before I go on any stage of any size. It's funny. I told my wife that, I think, back in August before I went on a pretty decent sized stage, and she didn't believe me. She was like, no, there's no way. There's absolutely no way that you have stage fright. I'm like, no, I do, because like I said, like my content is, it's pretty much set in stone, right? So when I'm going up, like, they might like it, they might love it, they also might hate it. And unlike DJing where I could shift the music and change the, the tempo and change the vibe and all that stuff, I'm pretty much stuck with what I got. So like it's a little, to me, it's a little unnerving. Do you still get any kind of stage fright?
I wouldn't call it stage fright because to me that's like a panic, like a wave. I think sometimes every time I up leveled, like if it was a bigger audience or more, prestigious event, like you were saying, I think that there were times when I would feel a little bit of, okay, am I fully prepared? But preparation for me is my hack. If I'm prepared, everything in life looks beautiful and rosy, So that's why I stress that the most. But sure, I felt, nerves before, and you just try to work that into good energy, right? Because sometimes the nerves can be really good energy, and that can allow you to blossom within the first 10 seconds of being out there, So yeah, I mean, I'm totally human, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not that
Like,
not that it's like a whole time, right? Not like, like you said, fright
right.
is the big thing, but like just like it's like I'm holding my breath for the first like 10 to 30 seconds through it, like hoping
Yeah.
that like the first couple of jokes or the first couple of lines are gonna hit, and it's not gonna be like, oh no, they are just like not the
Yeah.
right audience for me to be standing in front of
See,
right now.
I own that I'm not a comedian. You know what I mean? Like I'm funny because of something I would do and people might laugh, but I'm definitely not a comedian. So for me, I try to work like charisma because the comedy part, when I come out there, I'm like, my sister's really funny. I'm not that person, So I just try to work it in a different way and see if that kind of lands, but everyone's different. You just got to know yourself. You're probably really funny on stage, so it all works, so.
I try. I mean, a lot of my slideshows in the past have just been GIF files. Like the whole,
Okay.
like that's the whole, there's no words, it's just GIF files. And part of that's actually a crutch, like, secret, but behind the scenes,
Yeah.
it's a crutch because I know how to work from one thing to the other. And
Yeah.
part of that is, part of the creativity, like it allows me to be a little more free with like talking to the specific crowd that's in front of me or making a joke about what's going on around us, things of that nature. So,
Yeah.
but it takes an awful lot of time to put those slides
I was going to say,
together.
I always tell people with PowerPoints, there's still a practice with the PowerPoint because you have to know the flow of it. And I do workshops as well. And you still have to know the flow and the pacing of the PowerPoint if you're going to use the PowerPoint. So
Yep.
I get what you're saying. Totally.
And find the right gifts that like will that'll hit with almost any crowd, like that are universally funny or that just makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
So Matt Rafferty has a question.
Okay. I
How
can't
do
see him. I
Oh,
can't see it. I'm sorry.
no, unfortunately, he posted it in the MAPCON Facebook group. So you can't see it didn't post it in here, so I can't throw it up on the screen.
Okay.
Matt, if you're still watching, click on the video and add your comment there so I can add it to the screen.
I see. I'm going to use my phone, so we're going to use a little bit of
okay.
technology here. So, okay, Matt said, how do I find a group to speak to that is interested in my expertise? So the first thing, Matt, that I would recommend is asking yourself and digging into, okay, well, what value do I bring to a specific target audience? So like, who am I really targeting with my expertise? Who's going to get the most value out of what I have to say? And then from that point, then you can start looking at where those people play. Where's their playground of where they play? So if it's, I don't know, business owners in your local area, for example, and I'm just making this up, of course, maybe you're now looking at the Chamber of Commerce. Maybe, you're looking at different places where these people hang out and play. And then, are you a member there? Do you have a connection there? Is there somebody in your network who does? And that's one way to start. And then also the power of your own network, people really underestimate. I can't say that enough. Like, if you make a list of 20 organizations that you or somebody within your circle of 10 is connected to, you can ask for them to just introduce you. Do you know anyone who may be interested in my expertise and speaking to your group? Oh, there we go, Matt's. You're so fancy,
Joe.
On
board. I know,
you're
right?
So fancy. So I hope that helps you, Matt. But that's good for anyone to know. Is you have to really think about what value, like who's going to benefit the most out of what I have to offer. And then you start really really niching down is the win. People, if you message to everyone, you message to no one, right? There's a saying out there. So think about that. You want to niche down to who's really going to benefit and then see where they play.
I think that's great advice. I love my local Chamber of Commerce. Shout out to the Greater Woodbury Chamber of Commerce. And I think just getting out and seeing those people, and we talked a little bit about it earlier, like being famous online isn't the same as being famous like in person, and having people come and do those things with you in person. So I think I think that's awesome. Great advice.
Matt, I'm so glad you appreciated it. Awesome. Yes. Go forth. You could be speaking in a week. Yes. Wherever you want to be.
Absolutely.
And be willing to, I tell people, if you don't have much experience speaking or to a specific group that you're really aiming for, offer something that, is free. What if I presented a 45-minute or 90-minute workshop on my expertise to your group? Would that be valuable to you? Yes, it would. Okay, great. Let's line up a time. And that way, now you're getting experience speaking in front of people, and you may even land a client from that. So you can, speaking isn't just on the big conference stage. And I think there's a myth about that too, a little bit, I should say, Joe, because you can speak in workshops, you can speak in front of people at networking events. There's a lot of places where you can tell your story. Yes, Matt, in 1 week, you could certainly make the connections. Yes, you certainly can. I really believe, Joe, I'm going to go on. I'm going to take over for a second. Okay,
you
got it going, Matt.
Sit back.
Been talking all day, so this is just like the finale, right? But there's a lot to be said for playing offense, and I think too many people play defense when it comes to speaking, or rather, they expect it to all come to them because they are the experts. But there's many people who are experts, which is why sharing your story really matters, and making sure that you separate yourself from the pack with your compelling story, how you became an expert, what led you to that. Was it something in your childhood? Is it something that you had a breakthrough later in life? Whatever it is. And then maybe you can develop that a little bit more and massage it. But there's many ways to tell your story, even through the eyes of someone else. So when I talk about offense, what I mean is, once you figure out who you're really attracting, you can do massive outreach when you start applying your story into your conference template, your story into your speaker bio, all of those things. People are then attracted to you. And that's when you really start to see the magnitude of storytelling and putting it in all of your marketing material and then doing the outreach. So I really believe in the offense. Too many people just wait for stuff just to come on their lap. And I really think that, especially those new business owners out there, the fastest way to get clients is to do speaking. Hands down.
I think I couldn't agree more. I think that speaking, if you're looking to at least get some reps under you, Rotary clubs are a great way to do that. Yeah. They're open to lots of different topics, and they're constantly looking for speakers because they have like 1 to 2 meetings a week that they need a speaker for. So there's definitely and I've done quite a few Rotaries myself, and especially like 3 years ago, I was doing the How to Dream Big and Win talk. And so I did it at a couple of different Rotaries. It hit really big at some of them, and some of them not so much, because some of the audience was like way older and didn't get it. And I was like, it's okay. You guys lived your dream. It's cool. Yeah. But I'm just showing you how you can like take this knowledge, right, and take it to someone else who hasn't lived their dream yet, that might only be 20 years old instead of 80.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. Like, look at
you were getting reps in. Yeah, you were getting reps in. You were getting practice in,
and getting free lunches. And you get a free lunch with that. So it's not, or dinner. So it's not so bad.
Free lunches, visibility. I always say, if you're going to go speak, even if it's at the Rotary Club, take pictures. You know what I mean? Make the most of the moment and really leverage it, like Joe's saying. And get to know who the audience is that you'll be speaking in front of, so you can speak to them. And if anyone has any other questions, please drop it, because I am looking in the comments.
Yes. I am hawkeyeing all of those comments.
Are you? Okay.
In the meantime, speaking of speaking, we have 40, I think over 40 speakers
Oh, wow.
coming to MAPCON this year, down in Atlantic City, New Jersey, September 6th and 7th. I am so pumped. Getting out. I mean, I look, the Holiday Inn has been so good to us. It's helped give us some great roots, some great family have been made there. But this year being the 5th anniversary of the podcast conference, I felt like it was time to like step it up and take it to another level. So we're going to the Ocean Resort Casino. Have you been there, Bofta?
I haven't been to the Ocean. I know Ocean Resort. I'm not far from Atlantic City, so I've definitely been there a few times, but not to this particular resort. So it's exciting. It'll be fun.
It was a multi-billion-dollar company. No, billion-dollar building that was erected back in like 08, 09,
Wow.
and closed just a couple years later. It was called the Revel. And then the late, who sadly just passed away recently, Bruce DeFick, he resurrected it, brought a ton of people together and a bunch of investors together, and they got it reopened. And it's just an incredible building. Like, I mean, you walk through it, and I'm not one for casinos. Like, casinos don't do a whole lot for me, but I will like. It's an incredible.
He's gonna be
building.
betting on black at the end of the night. Okay, just saying.
I do like roulette. I will admit it is fun. Mostly the digital one with the screen, so I don't have to like reach over people. And
you have to call out people who say they don't gamble. That's why I'm doing that. Just it's only because you said it, and we're gonna have fun here. But obviously, I know you're focused on podcasts and not gambling. Sure.
Very much so. Yeah, it'll be a miracle if I get down to the floor to play any of the roulette. But if there's a bunch of people that are like, hey, let's go play, I would totally go play.
Yeah.
Plus it's nice because you can, like, on the digital one, you can just hit like rebet, so it just like puts all the chips back like in the same spot, so you don't have to keep constantly like playing a shell game with a bunch of other people. I don't know. It's yeah, I'd rather sit in my own chair and have fun. But with that said, sitting in a chair and getting to listen to so many podcasters, so many experts like Bofta, who is a Emmy award winning, and I was it Mora?
Murrow, Edward R. Murrow. Yeah, the Murrow.
Award-winning, multi-award winning.
That's fine.
Speaker, journalist, and talking about how you can craft your story, develop a better story, so you can take your story to the stages, to your podcast, reach more people. That's just one of the things that we'll have there. Headshots. So I think I forgot to mention this a bit last week. There are free headshots for every single attendee that comes in. Awesome. Jeanette Pellegrini she is our photographer. She's been our photographer the first 4 years, and this year will make 5 years. I absolutely adore her, and she will be coming down all the way out of Long Island. She comes down.
Wow.
We're very, very close friends, and she comes down, does all the photography, for it. Plus all of the headshots are free. It's a 2-day event, in case you didn't know. It's Friday morning. If you get the premium ticket, you can come to a private class that me and Samantha Riley, coming all the way from Australia, Sam is coming here and teaching this class alongside me. Last year, it was just me teaching the class. Everyone had an amazing time. It includes a free lunch. So it's from 9 to 12. It's all about elevating your podcast to the next level and turning it into your own business. Because a lot of these podcasters, they want to turn it into a business. They want it to take that
but
to the next
how?
level.
That's a big question everyone asks me, and I'm like, I'm not a podcasting expert. That's why I sent him to Joe, you got to learn these things, right? You got to learn these things if you want to do it, right, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many possibilities, and there's ways that, like, there is no rules in podcasting, so there's ways that we haven't even thought of yet or haven't even come across yet. It's like, wow, that would make a lot of sense. But between Sam and I, between the two of us, I think we have 9 years in podcasting.
Wow.
Maybe 10, because I'm not sure what year she might have started in 14, but she's been in business all of her life. I've been in business all of my life. So between the two of us, between podcasting and book writing and business owning. We're going to help everybody there elevate their podcast. It's limited seats. It's 30 limited seats and includes lunch. So 12 o'clock, we have a private lunch. 1 o'clock, the conference starts. So you don't even have to go find food, which speaking of food, there's great options at not only at Ocean Resort, but there's tons of options there. We have a Wahlburgers at the Ocean Resort, which I have yet to have myself. So I plan on getting one while I'm there, which should be pretty cool. So then we go right into the podcast conference. At the end of the day, we do something, and Bofta, I think I mentioned this to you. We do the podcast workshop, right? The creative podcast workshop, where you're going to get teamed up with 3 other podcasters, and you're going to have 25. I think this year is going to be 30 minutes. Normally it's 20 minutes, but you're going to have 30 minutes to craft your own podcast. So you got to create a 5-minute podcast, like a beginning, an intro music, outro music, topic, everything. And it's 5 minutes long, and you're gonna have to submit it. This year, you'll email the file to an email address. In previous years, you performed it for the entire, everybody there. Like everybody got to perform their podcast.
That's nerve-wracking.
It is, and in the first year, we actually had them perform on stage, which it was very
that's painful for some folks, though. I'm sure some folks were like, okay, I can't wait to get off here. What did I sign up for? But it's cool. It's cool that you have this variety that, you're sprinkling into this one day where people are getting, okay, I want to elevate my podcast. So cool. I want to learn how to be more creative with the podcast. So cool. I love the variety that you have sprinkled in there from all of your expertise.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So in previous years, they performed, but now this year with so many teams, we're going to have them submit, and then they are judged by our expert podcast panel. And the following day on Saturday, we will play the top 4 for people, 3 or 4 for people, like the ones that have the highest score, because they're judged on scale of 1 to 10 on 6 different factors. Wow. And then the top 3 or 4 will be played. And then that's right before lunch. And then after lunch, that's when we find out who wins, because the winning team this year, Audio Technica is sponsoring. So each person on the team will receive an Audio Technica ATR 2005 microphone, a boom mic, or like a boom arm, like the one I got here, and headphones in a pack. So super excited to give that away. And every year we've always given away, usually it's an ATR 2100 microphone. Sometimes there's been some other stuff thrown in, but this year, Audio Technica was willing to step up and give a whole package. So
nice.
Yeah, so we have so many speakers. I hope to interview a lot of them leading up to the conference this year. Like I said, we have over 40 speakers with vastly different topics, from audio quality to story crafting, to money making, to every aspect you could think of.
So I love it. So for when I share this to my page, I know that, Joe, there's going to be some people who are interested in what you have to offer here. Would you say that the conference MAPCON is really for beginner, middle, or seasoned podcaster?
I know you're not supposed to do it to everybody, but it really can be for everybody. I mean, we have Hall of Fame podcasters that come year after year. We have some of the heaviest hitters in the podcasting space, especially in the independent podcasting space, come out. We have people this is their hobby. We have people that they have a business, and part of their business is to market through a podcast. And some of them are, my business is my podcast. So it's really the gamut. And we have people, I know it's called the Mid-Atlantic Podcast Conference, but we have people from Australia, from the UK, from Washington State, California, South Dakota,
DC.
Texas, DC, a lot of people from DC, actually. Connecticut, Maine, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, it's just Chicago. These are just people that I'm thinking.
It's only, in my opinion, going to get bigger. I know a lot of coaches and consultants who are starting podcasts because the power of voice is going to be something that just stays with us. People talk about TV a lot, and there's something to be said for YouTube, of course. And there's something also to be said for just literally podcasts and hearing somebody's voice over and over. And that's what all the future thinking folks who make these predictions are talking about, is that we're just going to play things. We're going to just hear a lot of recordings and not see as much visually. I think there's something to be said for both, but it's interesting to me because so many coaches, Joe, that I even know are starting podcasts in 2019. They've already started them.
And I'm not really surprised. When it comes to podcasting, it's your voice in their ears. And there's a lot to be said. I mean, I know I started listening to podcasts back in 2005 with WDW Today, just because, and I a lot of my friends, they're all bigger tech heads than I am, and they're like, you gotta listen to the podcast. And I was like, but I gotta download it. I mean, I have an iPod. I gotta download it and sync it and do all that stuff. And I was like, there's nothing I really want. I just want to listen to music. That's 99% of what I listen to. And but I love Disney, and I love Disney World specifically. And they spoke to me, and I listened all the way up to the very end in 2014. I think 15 is when they finally the team called it quits after 11 years of 10 years, 11 years doing it. So, but I listened to everything. And with that said, there was a lot of nights where I had to plow our driveway at the shop. Or I say driveway, but it is really a giant parking lot. And I would just listen to every episode. Episode after episode.
It's mindless. You just can hear it. You just like someone's voice. You like what they say. They inspire you, or
like having
whatever
company.
It might be. And yeah, it is like having company. I never even thought of it that way, but that's a really good way to put it. I just think of it as kind of mindless. For me, I can tell you that when I've listened to different podcasters, it's usually because I was looking for tips in some direction that I was going in. So when I started business, I was listening to more business and marketing podcasts. When I wanted something more, different, I think I was listening to the NPR one. So it's like when they were doing one on stories. What the name is, somebody will drop it in the comments, but it was really good. It's an NPR podcast, and it was about business owners, like how they made it or how they built it, I think it's called. So it was cool, but it was business related, but it was through NPR, and it was just kind of cool. So I do think that there's something to be said for all of the experts out there that are putting out, their voice in this podcast world. So very, very cool. A lot of people want to know how to do it. So MAPCON, 15% discount. There's the link.
Oh yeah, right there. Thank you.
MidAtlanticPodcast.com/register. I got you, bro. Right there. So there you go. I told you I'm not funny, but I'm kind of am, but not. I don't get on stage and make jokes, but I have fun.
It's a lot safer in this day and age to not make jokes, honestly.
Yeah. Yes, I would agree with that. Yes, unless you got to be careful. Yeah, you got to be careful.
So how did you get your start in journalism? What was your first okay, I'm going to do this thing that I don't know if you had people in your family or knew somebody prior.
No, we knew no one. No. I mean, I was not connected or anything. My family, my parents are immigrants from Ethiopia. They came here for college, intending to go back. Little story there, but they intended to go back to Ethiopia, but there were human rights violations going on at the time. So the parents said, just stay there. And then before you knew it, more and more family, the kind of the immigrant story, more and more family members kept coming over as they were able to get out of the country due to all of the chaos that was going on at the time. So we didn't have some, I didn't know Diane Sawyer or something, I wasn't friends with Robin Roberts or anything like that. Really, I call it persistence. I did always really enjoy writing, and I did enjoy speaking. But, I really saw myself more as, a writer, and I enjoyed writing, whether it was a card, it was like anything, almost like a song, it could be anything, but I enjoyed looking back at childhood. I'm like, I enjoyed the act of writing, and just kind of that quiet space, so there's definitely a part of me that's introverted. And so I was just, drawn to it and said, let me try it. And then it took me a long time to find, my first job. I applied probably, Joe, to 100 TV stations, more than that, easily. And back then, not to date myself, but back then you had to send a VHS tape, because they need evidence that you can do it. So it's like I sent the VHS tape plus the resume go to the post office, see the job opening, do the same thing. And I was just doing that over and over. And even, one of my friends was like, aren't you just going to throw in the towel? Like, goodness, you could be doing a million other things. But once I'd started, I was like, no. Now that I've said I'm going to do this, I really want to at least crack into it. So I got my first job, packed my Honda up, had no kind of furniture, and drove to Georgia in a really small city of 40,000. And that's where I got my first job. And after that, it was a lot easier to get jobs, as I wanted to move up. And so I ended up working for a lot of different affiliates. I worked in Memphis and Georgia and then Pittsburgh. So I did the nomadic reporter thing for about a decade before I began coaching. And then I decided to start coaching, and I started hosting workshops on public speaking and storytelling and your message and just motivating people. And I wanted to empower people just to be able to break through. And I started doing workshops and just said, let me see if anyone's interested. And I was working the morning shift, believe it or not, Joe, from 3 a.m. to 11 a.m. And then from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m., I was doing trainings on business and sales calls and whatever I could to get people enrolled in my workshops. And that's how it really started. So I kind of told myself if I could, apply to 100 places and still get through and then be in a career for a decade and work up my way up the industry, that I could do business. Because I knew that if I could just apply that same grit to this, other beast that I was starting and really from scratch. I knew my skill set, but not necessarily knew business at that time. So I had to train, and learn about it. I had to learn. I had to dive into learning and get my own coach and figure it out. So I was on the fast track, and that's what I did. And here I am, speaking to Joe, Super Joe.
So what was what's the why behind you have a successful career, you most likely could have continued on the path that you're on and continued to go up the food chain of network affiliates to possibly the GMAs, today's shows or whatever of the world.
That's a really good question. And for me, it was just about, a couple of things. One, high impact. What kind of high impact could I have, speaking to the masses in a different way from a motivational standpoint, which I had felt drawn to, but never knew how to do it. So I was kind of like, oh, can I do this? And I was that person that I now coach, so I really do know where a lot of people are coming from in that sense. And then there was just the idea of being able to teach people how to share their story with all of my journalism background, and how cool it is if they're now telling their story to thousands of people, and then they're telling another person telling their story to thousands of people. And so you're able to have this impact through storytelling where it's like I'm empowering other people to go forth and do their thing. And so it was a number of things like that. I also just felt pulled to be an entrepreneur from for years, honestly, but just wasn't sure where I was going to go and what direction. But I did feel this pull that at some point, and the station did ask me to resign. And I said no, but at some point I was like, if I'm going to try this, now is the time. Because I did feel that pull to be an entrepreneur and do my own thing and own my own time and all that stuff that everyone wants, right? So that's pretty much sums it up.
So normally I would be asking, what do you love about podcasting? But I'm going to ask what you love about speaking.
I love the energy, that speaking gives a room. I think that all of us have been in a room with a really good speaker. And when you get chills or when somebody can really change your perspective, I just think there's this energy in the room that really great speakers are able to do, and the ability, like I said, to have that impact with your message. And so for me, it's just being able to empower people that they can step up, they can do more, they can live bigger, they can do all those things that they've been dreaming about, but just doing it and taking action on it and no more waiting. Because at the end of our days, I think the biggest fear that I have is that I didn't try something that I felt pulled to do. And so even if I ended up, doing something different in 5 years, back into something else, I want to know, man, I tried this and I figured this out and no regrets. And so I think what it does is it empowers me, and it empowers me to have impact with other people. And that's at the end of the day, that's really why I like it and why I love it. It's just so much energy that you can give.
No, I totally couldn't agree more with that answer.
But you're
What's one?
laughing. Wait, why
Well,
are
I'm
you
laughing because my follow-up question is, what do you hate about speaking? Like,
laughing?
or something about maybe about the process to getting on stage, or the process to something.
Oh, I mean, I'm not in love with practicing. I do it because it's a means to be great. I'm not in love with practicing all the time. You know what I mean? Like, no, I don't want to necessarily do that. But it's kind of like, look, if a singer doesn't practice, they're probably no good. They forget the lines, they sound off tune, all of those things. So to me, it's a necessary thing, but I'm not in love with practicing all the time. I prefer to just go out and just do it. But sometimes,
I do too, personally, but being from Philly, we're talking about practice, Allen Iverson.
I know. Talking about practice. Talking about practice. I know AI. I know AI back in the day, but I loved AI. It's like I was rooting for him because he went to Georgetown
hmm
with John. Who's the coach? John.
Oh,
That coach is John something. Anyways, because he went to Georgetown, not so much, the Philly
John
thing. Yes,
Thompson.
Thompson. Yes, you're so right, John Thompson. But
I
yes,
googled it, so I don't
okay. I
have
was
to.
like, God, you're good. So because he went to Georgetown, a lot of people in this area were really big fans, and were like rooting for him and his success. So yeah, but anyway.
Yeah,
So practice. Talk about practice. Talking about
yeah.
practice. Talking about practice. Yeah. So yeah, I practice out of necessity, and not for everything, to be honest. Like sometimes I don't need that much practice, but if I'm doing a keynote, then yes.
Is
And
it is
I regret it if I don't.
is it for like new talks that you feel like you need to
Yeah.
practice? Yeah.
Yeah, for new talks, new themes, like I'm pivoting in some way, I'm really customization, all of those things. Workshops, I really like to time things out, what I think will take, how long things will take when I'm doing a workshop. And so you do need to kind of go over it. Okay, this part will probably take this long, so that you get a feel for it and you're not caught off guard if you run out of time. So some of it's just a matter of timing too. If I'm only budgeted a certain amount of time to speak on a stage too. I MC quite a bit as well. That people give you scripts for, but usually kind of late, to be honest. So, I at least tried to go through and at least I talk about cutting stuff out earlier. I cut out a lot of the rambling stuff that they put in there or add my own things to it. And I can only do that by going over it in my own quiet head, like, beforehand. So, yeah.
Now, do you Oh no, I just had a brain fart. Oh man, I apologize.
Okay.
Not do you, not do you, but does anybody listening or watching right now have any questions? Throw that in the chat room. We have a few people watching. I know people have been
Okay.
popping in and out. If you have any questions, throw it up. I'll throw it up on the screen below, and throw it, and we'll try to get it answered here. Now, Bofta, where do you see yourself in like 3 to 5 years in your
Oh,
speaking
gosh.
career? Like, where would you like
Oh.
ideal, like everything goes right and you're like, this is where I want to be.
Oh, you're a good interviewer here with this question. I got to give it to you, Super Joe. Super Joe.
That was a joke too. That was funny, but Joe.
Let me think. I would have to say probably more international. I really want to speak more in Africa. And so for me, just doing that, would be really great not to say it has to be every week or something, because I don't want to do that every single week, but I do want to just broaden it more, be more international with the audiences that I'm reaching. And so that's one thing I would say that I definitely would like to do. So far, I've just been like putting stuff out there and, you know, and going with it, you know, but in 3 to 5 years, I think I would have more of that next level. Um, you know, yeah, I would say that's what comes to mind. And that's immediately what came to mind, but I haven't really thought into exactly 5 years what speaking. I just do it.
Well, I do have a very good friend, Azuka Zook, who I should introduce you to because he does speak both here in America a lot and
Yeah,
also in Africa at schools and other events. So it might be a
awesome.
good connection to at least get that spark spark maybe a
Yeah,
little earlier.
absolutely. I was in London in December. That was great. And I had a lead actually for March in Africa, but then I think their conference didn't end up being as many attendees as they anticipated. But yes, it's all working, right? The flow. And so yeah, I appreciate connections and folks watching. This is how it happens, by the way. It's putting it out there, and then
Yep.
somebody like Super Joe saying, "Yeah, I'll introduce you." So you're bearing witness. Just saying.
That's what you have to be able to put it out there. And I think that is very powerful. A lot of people will say, oh, well, I don't want to put it out there because what if it doesn't work out? Or it's like, yeah, but that's that's the whole part of the journey. Like that's the whole point, right?
Exactly.
Like that's the
So
thing
true. And you know what?
that's why you gotta do it.
I just wrote to my email list. You know, I have a list, and I'll send nuggets there. But I was saying the exact same thing, that if you're not in the game, you know, then you don't deserve, not even almost, you don't deserve to win. You know, nobody and we use basketball, let's talk about AI, you know, in order to be the leading scorer, you have to take a shot, you know, so
Shout out to
many
Ben
people want to
Simmons.
win. Yeah. So many people want to win, and they say it, but you're not willing to risk, oh, let me invest in this. Let me invest with Joe. Let me invest with whoever to at least get in the game. And so you're always on the sidelines, and the only way is to get in the game. And how do I know if it's going to be right? You don't know. You just do it, you know? And it's one of those things where I'm like, if I could just pull everyone off their seats, I totally would, just to say, you can do it. You just have to be able to play and get in the game. And too many
Yep.
people are sitting on the sidelines, right? So I mean, what you're saying is true. And then there's the other thing is, Joe, actually what we're talking about it. A lot of people will think, you know, there's an ego that gets in the way of like, oh, I don't need to be introduced to anyone. You know, I'm so and so. You know, I don't need that. You know, and that's all ego. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's all ego talking. But when people feel that way, it's like, well, if I put myself out there, what will people say and think? I don't know. You know, but you can only try. And so I hope people feel inspired. When I speak, I hope people feel inspired and that they can do anything. That's what I hope.
That is if you could just change one life at a time through speaking or podcasting or
Yeah.
creating videos or just doing something that has a positive spin to it, I
Yeah.
think it's just, to me, that's part of the reason I do all this and spend all this time
Yeah.
investing in myself and investing in the people around me. So speaking of investing in people around me,
Yeah.
MAPCON 5 in Atlantic City, New Jersey this year. I am. If you don't know, you actually, if you get yourself a plus or premium ticket, you get a coveted MAPCON T-shirt, which ever since the first, well, actually, yeah, after the first year, because most people don't. The first year was not a brilliant T-shirt, but after the first year, people have coveted these T-shirts very, very much so, asking for extras for them to wear, and people still take pictures with these shirts even like years after the fact. And I mean,
That's
I wear
awesome.
one almost all the
It's
time.
like the authentic original, man. It's like the first Michael Jordans or something. I don't know.
And I have one that's in mint. Like I have one that I wear. My wife wears one around the house and stuff.
Aww.
But I have like two or three that are just like mint condition, never worn. So that's actually pretty cool.
That is cool. Can I ask you something,
Of
Super
course.
Joe? What you got in the background? Because I can see the tripod. Is that your phone recording a different angle?
No, that is the first episode of The Top playing, the TV show.
Oh.
Playing in the background. It didn't come out the way I wanted it to.
Oh,
I was
okay.
thinking, it was like, oh, because I mean, I have this TV here behind me, but it's actually not plugged in right now, and you can
Okay.
only see like the top or the bottom half of it. So I was like, well, let me see how this looks. And I didn't have a chance to really play with the positioning of it prior to getting on here with you. So
Okay.
it was supposed to look a lot cooler than it actually does.
No, I was just curious. I was like, is he cutting different angles for podcasting? Like, this is new level type stuff, or is he YouTubing at the same time? I just want to know. No, but so anyways, curiosity got the best of me. I had to ask, and I'm sure somebody who's catching the replay might
be curious as to what that is.
Yeah, you know. So I'm looking to see if there's anybody has comments. You know, this is the time to do it because we are live here, 55 minutes talking about MAPCON 5.
Yes, and we will be wrapping up here soon. Yeah, so I got to play around with this a little bit more.
Okay.
Long story short,
it's all good. All good. I was just curious. Let me check on my dog. Okay, he's still good. He's like, all right, take me out for a walk in a little bit. But he's 9 pounds, but thinks he's 60 pounds. So that's
wow. Usually it's the other way around.
You know, if somebody comes around me, he's possessive and makes this sounds. It's kind of funny. Small dog syndrome. What can you say? So yeah, no, he's cool. He's cool.
So yeah, so this MAPCON, go to I should pull up the banner on that. There's the banner with the 15% off underneath.
Yeah.
And you will get yourself 15% off your plus or premium ticket using the promo code MAPCON5. Go to midatlanticpodcast.com/register. Bofta, it has been amazing having you on. I don't know where the heck 56 minutes went.
I know, it was a lot of fun.
I feel like it's been about 20. It's been incredible. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. Before we fully wrap up, is there any last thoughts you'd like to share?
Well, Super Joe, if anyone's looking for speaking and storytelling tips, techniques, all of that good stuff, if I may I share my free group?
Absolutely, please
okay,
do.
So I have a free group. I started a course recently where you can dive into it. But anyways, that information's all in my group. It's called Speak and Influence. And I'll put the link there. I will be at MAPCON 5. I'm excited to meet you. I'm going to be talking about interviewing techniques, things that you need to keep in mind when you are the person and you're the host, how to be engaging like Super Joe is, and some of the other pros out there, but really just how to deeply connect with your audience and how to tap into the story of the people you're interviewing, as Joe's done really well tonight. So that's evidence of that. But I'll go into a lot of tips at MAPCON 5. But in the meantime, you can feel free to stay connected with me in my group, Speak and Influence. I'll put a link below. And I'd love to meet you. Feel free to message me if you have any questions. And I'll just, keep it simple. That's it, really, Joe.
You absolutely should. And, thank you for reaching out to me about speaking at MAPCON. We had a great conversation that turned into, you wanting to come and then being here, sitting next to me. Too bad you don't have like a blue wall too. It could have been like an extension of the room.
Kind of cool, yeah.
Well, that's a TV trick, isn't it? Like
that's
literally like you're sitting like, okay, we're gonna go to Bofta now, and it's like literally you're on the other.
Yeah,
like,
you're right there. Like the studio, usually, unless you're network, usually the studios are not as big as they seem. So yeah, all kinds of camera tricks and TV that make it fun. So sorry, I don't have a green screen behind me, so we look like
it's all good. It's all good.
But yeah, and you know what? That's a perfect example of just reaching out, seeing something. I encourage anyone, when you see something on Facebook and you see an opportunity for you to speak, maybe, or share your message, don't be shy. Just reach out to the organizer. Make sure you have things together. Joe was able to see my speaker bio and see my speaker reel and see that I was legit. So you want to show up as a pro, but hey, there's an abundance of opportunities even on Facebook. So if you're not tapping into those, Matt, I think it was saying like, could I really speak next week? You really could. And at least on a Facebook Live, right? Which is speaking, just saying.
Yeah, he did say in 1 week, and you absolutely can. There are plenty of opportunities out there. Not all of them are paid, but those come with time. It's just a matter of finding the right organizations, the right people, making the right connections. And then as the Dave Jackson always says, the first question shouldn't always be, how do I make money? The first question should be, how do I get good? It's just like in podcasting, but in like anything.
In anything. Yep.
How
Because
do
when
I
you're
get
so good, people want you. That's the
Yep.
thing. In anything, athletes, whoever you are, when you're so good, like they can't avoid reaching out to you. And so I think that's so true, Joe. It takes a while to get good at the craft, but if you're committed like anything else, you can do it too. Why not? It's a craft.
And the other side of that coin, if you want to get good, also don't be afraid to reach out to people, right? Don't just think that, if I just do this good thing,
Play
everyone's
offense.
going to come flocking to
Yeah.
me.
Play
That's
offense.
not necessarily the case.
Yeah, and where does that work anyway? Like where in life has that worked? Where it's like, oh, they're all the clients will come, all the rain will come, all the money will come. No, it's like everyone I know who's successful worked their tail off for it or inherited it, but work their tail off
Somebody did.
Yeah, somebody worked their tail off, right? Maybe a generation ago, but it's just the reality of it. So stay hungry. Go for it. If anything you learned from today, go to MAPCON 5. I can't wait to meet you guys. And I'm excited to be speaking there and sharing my nuggets. And there's the link right there from my man, Joe. And I think we're going to call it a night, right?
One last
Peace
thing I
out.
want to mention is
go ahead.
the great thing about MAPCON is it's all in one room. Everybody's in the same room. So you're going to be in the same room as Bofta the whole time she's there. There's no we're in she's in this room, but then like there's 4 other rooms and then there's these other areas. Like everybody's in one room. So if you have a desire to meet Bofta and talk about like speaking or talk about your interview process or something like that, she's in the room. Like there's no like other place for her to really
most conferences, this is unique because it's intimate. Most conferences, people jet out. I will actually promise this to anyone who goes. So anyone who goes to MAPCON 5, after I speak, if you have questions and I'm not able to answer it in that setting because it's all timed out, I will meet with you one-on-one after. Like I'll go right outside the room and talk with everyone. I don't want anyone to feel like they didn't get an opportunity and they came all the way out to Atlantic City. So that's my promise to this audience. I'm staying there. So truly, I will meet you one-on-one after, or, I'll wait for the line or whatever it might be. Not like saying there'll be a line, but I don't want anyone to think, whatever.
There will be a line. There will be a line.
But I'm just saying, I want to make sure that everyone knows that it's, like you said, that's such a good point. It's a unique and intimate setting. And if you don't get a chance to ask your question, you will at some point, because I'll wait. I'll get coffee and get extra coffee and just wait. Because clearly that's what I do. I'm like wired at 8:30. So this is how I am, but this is just me. Okay. So I look forward to meeting everyone there in this unique and intimate setting. And I look forward to it. I just, I think it's going to be great. It's awesome.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you. And I appreciate you, the listener, for hanging in there for over 1 hour for this episode of the Mid-Atlantic Podcast Conference podcast, because there isn't enough podcast in the name. Bofta, thank you again so much. Listeners, thank you again. I look to be back here next week around the same time with another guest from MAPCON. I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor for this week's episode, which is podcastingyou.com. If you want to get booked on podcasts, they're the people that can help you do that. Go to podcastingyou.com. That's YOU.com. Everyone have a great week. Take care.